Hello and welcome to this video on how to learn chess. There are many different things we have to learn if we want to become a good chess player, but some of them are far more important to learn as a beginner. In this video, I'm going to show you different areas of chess and recommend which ones you should focus on when you're just starting out. There are lots of resources for learning chess, such as books, YouTube courses, and the chess websites. I recommend that you start out by registering on one of the chess websites because this will let you be able to play online games and access their online learning resources. And after all, it's their business model to be attracting and teaching new players to chess. The three biggest chess websites are chess.com, Lichess, and Chess24, and I recommend you sign up to whichever one you like the look of the most. One of the ways we can characterize chess is by saying it consists of strategy and tactics. Strategy tends to deal with long-term plans, such as moving our pieces, and tactics tend to deal with short-term plans, such as the creation of threats. Let me show you some examples. Here we have an example of a tactic. White is able to advance their pawn and simultaneously attack two black pieces. This means that black will be unable to save both pieces. For example, black retreats their bishop so that it can't be captured. Well, white is able to capture the black knight and trade a lower value piece pawn for a higher value piece knight. A second example of a tactic could deal with what we call an overloaded defender. Notice that white is attacking both the black knight and the black bishop. And whilst these are both defended, the problem for black is that it's the same piece defending both. White is able to exploit this, for example, by capturing the black knight, and when the black queen recaptures, she loses protection of the black bishop. So white is now able to capture a bishop for free. Okay, what about strategy? Well, if we look at this position, we often say that pieces are better when they control more squares. Let's look at the bishops on the board. Here, we would say that white has one good bishop because it controls many squares, and one bad bishop because it's blocked by its own pawns, doesn't control many squares. The exact same thing is true for black. Black has one bishop that is free to control many squares, and one bishop that doesn't control many squares, it's blocked by its own pawns. So, white could come up with a strategical idea to exchange white's bad bishop for black's good bishop. How might white go about this? Well, white could place the bishop here, and then black is unable to avoid the exchange of bishops. Say black were to develop the knight, well, then white is able to exchange off his dark squared bishop for black's dark squared bishop. This leaves white with a good bishop, and it leaves black with a poor bishop. Therefore, we can say that white has improved their position relative to black. Now, when you're starting out, it's much more important to learn tactics than it is to learn strategy. This is because strategy often involves longer term concepts which can be harder to execute. But it also is because, for example, say you did this beautiful strategical idea and you end up with a far better bishop than your opponent. Well, if later in the game your opponent uses a tactical concept that you don't know to just win your good bishop for free, Well, your opponent's going to be in the better position because they have more pieces. So when you're starting out, I recommend you use a tactics trainer. You should be able to find this on whichever chess website you registered on. Another way we can characterize chess is by splitting the game up into stages. We call the first stage, from our initial move to developing our pieces, the opening. Here's an example of an opening. We have some pieces developed, and we've also castled our king, but we still have other pieces yet to develop. After that, we get the middle game. This is where most of our pieces are developed, and we're now trying to come up with plans to take advantage of weaknesses in our opponent's position. Here, for example, we saw that there was a tactic. And finally, a game may continue on into the end game, which is when there are only a few pieces left for each side. As a beginner, I recommend that you approach these stages organically and you deal with them in the order that you meet them. So the first thing to learn is general rules for the opening. Now, general rules will involve things like castling your king, getting pawns in the center, and developing your pieces. So you want to keep practicing, keep learning general rules for the opening until you get positions more like the white side. Here we can see that white has managed to develop 3 pieces and castle their king, whereas black has only developed the 1 piece. So white is well set up to then learn middle game plans because they have a far higher chance of executing them now their pieces are on good squares, whereas black is not even ready to begin executing middle game plans, and black needs to work on their opening. And then similarly, once we're in the middle game, this is a very rich part of chess. We should spend time learning new tactics, learning new strategies that we can use. And we shouldn't yet worry ourselves about the end game because for new players, it's quite unlikely that a game will get to an end game. It's more likely that one player will emerge victorious in the middle game. But when you get to a certain level, you will find that your games reach end games more and more commonly, and at this point, you should spend some time learning strategies that exist in the end game. My final tip for you is to develop 2 good habits when playing chess. The first is, whenever your opponent makes a move, before you do anything, to work out what it is your opponent's planning. What are their ideas? What are they threatening? The reason for this is twofold. One, they might be attacking something of yours and you need to respond to it. And the second reason is that if you can work out what your opponent's trying to do, you can potentially stop it. And chess is only a 2-player game, so stopping your opponent's ideas is just as important as advancing your own. You'll make fewer mistakes if you spend that time to consider what your opponent is doing. And the second tip I have for you is, whenever you're playing a game, make sure for every single move that you make, you could explain to someone. So if you like, imagine that someone is sitting beside you and every time you make a move, they say to you, "Why did you do that?" If you need to be able to rationally explain to them what your reasons were for making a move. This stops you just moving pieces randomly and perhaps not learning so much. At least if you had an idea, then you can later see whether that idea worked or not. If you're moving your pieces without too much thought, then it'll be harder to learn. All right, those were my suggestions for what to focus on when learning. Good luck.